All right, here we go. This is the PSAT NMSQT from October of 2022. When you go on College Board and you actually look at the questions that you missed, all the tests are in different orders. What they do is like the first 5 questions, they jumble those 5 up, and then the next 5, they jumble those 5 up. So like if on your test it says you missed number 1, you're going to have to click on it and see the actual question. On this test, it might be number 2 or number 4. But it's usually generally within 5 questions of where it says you missed it. So here we go. I'm not sure exactly which form this one was, but let's get after it. Number 1, linear function. So this is function notation. The way to interpret this is your x value and this is their y value. So it basically gives you a table, and it kind of says, hey, when you input 0, you get an output of 2. And then you have another point, -6, comma 0. So one thing right away I notice is this is a y-intercept. Y-intercept is always when x equals 0. And since these are all in y equals mx plus b form, I can eliminate a, I can eliminate c. These two both have the +2 as the y-intercept. Now I just got to figure out the slope. You can either do the change in y over change in x. So change in y over change in x. So if I subtract the y values, 2 subtract 0, and then 0 subtract -6, you will get 2/6 or reduce it for 1/3. So I know the correct answer is B. I'm going to eliminate D. If you're faster at graphing, you very easily could have just sketched these 2 points out, 0, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0. Sketched your own little graph, and you could see you had a rise over run of 2/6 or 1/3. So either way. Number 2, right next to it here, we have a equation, 2 times the length plus 2w equals 24. Rectangle with a perimeter of 24. Which of the following is a graph of this equation? So we're trying to match 2l plus 2w equals 24. Well, it looks like if I replace, it looks like all of these graphs are y-intercepts. So let me kind of shrink this down just a little bit where we can see a few more of the graphs. I think that'll get them all in there. All right. So 2L plus 2W equals 24. Well, if you do a little XY table or, an LW table, basically if you put 0 in for L, you're going to need a 12 for a W to get 24, and then vice versa. So both of those intercepts should be on there, and I think D is the only choice that has those 2 intercepts with 0, 12 and 12, 0. So the correct answer there is D. All right, number 3, we have a graph of a parabola, and it looks like all of the points below are in what's called vertex form. So remember, vertex form is x minus h squared plus k, where you have I was going to write center. You have the vertex at h comma k. So vertex is at hk. There's other transformations, but this one's pretty basic. But the h part's kind of tricky. So like on this first, so let's look at the center. The center, or the vertex, is at 2, -5. So I'm looking for a vertex of 2, -5. So if I put 2 in for h, that should read x minus 2 squared. And then the k should be a -5. So I'm looking for that one. So it looks like this one is going to be A. Sometimes that's a little tricky because you might think that the -2 means move to the left, but inside the parentheses controls left and right, and it's always the opposite of what you would think. All right, number 4 just looks like a straight up solve some algebra. What is the solution? You could just plug the numbers in there if you're not very good at algebra. For me, the easiest way would be divide both sides by 2, and I'll get y minus 5 equals 7, add 5 to both sides, and I get y equals 12. You also could have distributed, did 2y minus 10 is 14, add 10 to both sides, and divide, and you also get y equals 12. So a few different options there. All right, so this next one is a system of inequalities. Remember these, the first column numbers are x, the second are y. So you could just plug those in and see who's true or not true, and kind of run through all of them. But you have to work for both of them if you're going to be a solution to that system. Another way is to graph it. I might be able to graph this pretty quickly. So less than 2x. So I know that has an intercept of 0 and a slope of 2. So I know we're going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, 2 over 1. And I get this dashed line, something like that. And then I want to shade, below the line because it's y is less than. So all the solutions are kind of over here in this region. And then when I graph the other one, the other line, it's greater than negative x plus 3. So I go up here to plus 3, that's my intercept. Slope of negative 1 means I go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. And again, this is going to be a dotted line there. And this one, the solution region, since it's greater than, it's going to be above that line. So it's going to be, up in this area right here. I don't know why those were dotted. But so basically my solution region is the overlap. So it's everything in this zone right over here. It's all of this stuff. So I'm kind of looking for the ordered pair that lives over there. And let's just kind of run through these. If I try 1, 1, nope, not going to make it. 3, 0, down 1 over, down 1 over, down 1. I think that one's right on the line. My drawing's a little crappy, but it's right on the boundary. So that one actually doesn't work because it's a dotted line. 3, 2 is definitely going to put me in the zone, so I think this one's correct. 4, negative 2, my graph would have to be a little more precise, but I don't think that one's going to work as well. So I'm going to go with C. It might have been faster for you to just plug x equals 3 in and 2 for y, and you get 2 is less than 6, which that is true. And then if I plug this 3 in right here, and I plug the 2 in right there, we will get 2 greater than negative 3 plus 3. 2 is greater than 0. That's true as well. So the other ones would have been false. And they probably would have been equal to and not greater than. The correct answer is C. All right, number 6, big long word problem, crazy looking equation, but it's on the no calculator section, so it should be not a lot of math. The equation above models fuel economy, E of S. So this is, what kind of mileage your car gets per gallon. And of a certain vehicle, the vehicle's speed is S. So this is our speed. So basically, if you tell me the speed, I could calculate the fuel economy, and it only works between 20 and 70. All right. So based on the model, which of the following is the best interpretation of E25 equals 24? Well, it's E of S. So this is the S. So that's the speed. So at 25 miles per hour, and it equals, E of S, all of this stuff, this calculates the miles per gallon. So when you actually put 25 in and you do all that work, they're telling me the answer is 24 when I plug S in. So at 25 miles an hour, we get 24 miles per gallon. So which one is it? Nope, that one has it backwards. Constant speed of 24, no. Constant speed of 25, fuel economy is 24. I believe it's C. Constant speed of 25, fuel economy is 55. No. So correct answer there is C. They basically give me the input and the output right there. All right, number 7 looks like an exponential growth equation. P of t equals blah, blah, blah. So the setup for these ones, this first number is always your starting amount. That's how much you begin with. And then this is either growth or decay. And since it's bigger than 1, it's 1 plus r, where r is the percent as a decimal. So that 0.04, Well, that would represent a 4% growth. So we're talking about 4% growth. T is years. So if it's 1 year, you would do 1263 times 1.04, and that would be the amount of growth in 1 year, 4%. So it says, which of the following functions models the population of the town n months? So they're switching on us from years to months. Well, you know, if after 1 year, it's 1263 times 1.04, you know, to the first power, that's after a year. If we want to do it in months, well, 12 months is 1 year. So I believe this first equation is going to work because that would be 1263 times 1.04 and then times 12 over 12. So that would basically figure it out for me if I knew the amount of months. So like if it was 3 months, you're not going to get the full 4% growth. You're going to get less than that. So these other answers all involve, you know, various other ways to monkey with n, but the correct answer here is going to be A. All right, number 8 is a system of equations. There's always a lot of these on the SAT. This one's a little weird though because one of them aren't linear. And usually when that happens, there's some factoring that can be done. So if I look at this part here, this is the difference of two squares. If I factor that, that's really x plus y times x minus y. You know, and if you expanded it back out, that middle term cancels. So I kind of realize that that's 32. But then they tell me right up above that x plus y is 8. So I can kind of get rid of this x plus y and just call that 8. And, you know, 8 times what will give me 32? Well, 8 times 4 is 32. So I know what this expression x minus y has to equal. It just has to equal 4. So that's probably the easiest way to do this one. Number 9, the relationship between two variables x and y is linear. For every increase on the value x by 1, increase by 4. All right, so on this one, you could basically make a table. And it says when the value of x is 2, then the value of y is 11. So they kind of give me a point. Now, I could plug that in over to the left, but there's a couple of them that it works for. You know, like right away, if I plug 2 in here, 3 times 2 is 6 plus 4. Well, that equals 10. And if I put 2 in here, I get 11. If I put 2 in here, I get 11. If I put 2 in there, I get 15. So you could get it down to a 50-50 just with that. But then you got this other clue. It says for every increase of x by 1, the other one increases by 4. Well, I don't know why I wrote that. It increases by 4, so this would be 15. So basically that gives me the slope. Remember, slope is change in y divided by change in x. There was one like this earlier on the test. So the change in y, we're going up by 4 every time we go up by 1 over here. So we have a slope of 4. So I know the correct answer is D. This one is out. You also could have went backwards to get the y-intercept. You could have went to 1 and subtracted 4, and then went to 0 and subtracted 4, and then you would have found the y-intercept was 3, which also would have given you the right answer. All right, number 10, looks like we have a linear equation. X is on both sides. How many solutions does this have? So something freaky is probably going to happen on this one. If I distribute this 1/10, you know, on the left I have this. Well, 1/10 of 50, that means divided by 10. I get 5x. 1/10 of 100 is 10. And it looks like I have the exact same equation on the left and the right. So whenever you have the exact same equation, that means you can plug any x you want. It's always going to be true. So the correct answer here is D, infinitely many. All right, number 11. Looks like we got somebody from Ukraine set the world record for pole vaulting. So we got to match up this table with feet. And right away, you know, if you've had physics or if you've had algebra 2 and you've dealt with this projectile motion stuff or free fall, gravity, it's in the form y equals negative 1/2 gt squared plus initial velocity times time plus initial height. This is the generic equation for projectile motion or free fall if you don't have any sort of initial velocity. But I know this front part is always negative because gravity is pulling me down. So that kind of wiped out these two. Plus they don't match the table. If you put in, a pretty big number like 1.5 and you square that and then you times it by 16, I don't think it's going to fit the data here. But then I noticed that this would just be free fall. This would just be if something was just falling with no initial velocity. And if this person's pole vaulting, they have some sort of initial velocity. So just by that, the correct answer is going to have to be B. I could plug a point in here just to kind of test it. If I pick 1, I could see if I get 20. And if I put 1 squared is 1, negative 16 plus 36, that would be 20. If I put 1 in here, I would get an answer of 16. If I put 1 in here, I'd get an answer of negative 16. If I put 1 in here, that one would give me, that would give me 52. So really, I could have just plugged 1 in and picked the right equation that gave me the 20 if I didn't know all of this physics stuff. All right, number 12 looks kind of nasty. It's solving the quadratic, which normally I would try to factor or use square roots if possible, but I can just look at all the answers and see all these radicals, that this is going to be quadratic formula. So you got to remember the quadratic formula. It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You just kind of have to have that memorized. So let's lock this down. A is 2, B is 4, C is negative 5. At least we only have one negative number, I guess, if there's a bright side. So negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared, 4 squared, minus 4 times A times C. All right, so 4 times A times C. So that's a negative 40. So minus a negative 40, all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. All right, so let's clean this up. So that's negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 56, all over 4. So I know in front, I can divide both these pieces by 4. So I can kind of go negative 4 over 4, and then plus or minus the square root of 56 over 4. So I know I'm going to get a negative 1 here in the beginning. So right away, if I'm short on time, I'm down to a 50-50. But we got to figure out what the heck's going on right there. Well, the square root of 56 over 4. So I gotta do a little bit of work here. So the square root of 56 can be broken down. If I simplify that radical, I need to find a perfect square in there. So perfect squares are like, 4, 9, 16, 5 times 5, 6 times 6. So I think I'm going to do a 4. So the square root of 4 times 4 goes into 56. It looks like 14 times. And all of that is over 4. But the square root of 4 is just 2. So I can replace this with just a 2. So, and then that reduces down because 2 over 4 is 1/2. So that's where they get the radical 14 over 2. So the correct answer here is going to be B. That one's just kind of brute force, and it takes a little bit of time. All right, number 13, when x equals 0, the value of y is 75. You increase 9% for every increase of 1. So when you increase by 9%, that's not linear. So that wipes out A and B. Those are linear increases. So we have an exponential thing here. And an increase by 9% means I'm going to go 1 plus 9%, or 1 plus 0.09. So I know right away, correct answer is D. This would be a 9% decrease if they were to ask that type of question. All right, number 14, system of equations. When it's stacked up the way that it is, where the x's are lined up, the y's, the constants, I'm going to eliminate. You try to get coefficients to be opposite, and luckily right here in the y's, I have a set of opposites. So I'm just going to add or combine these two rows. -5 plus 8, that'll give me 3x. The 7y and -7y cancel out. This will be -9. So divide both sides and get x equals -3. But be careful because they want us to find the value of y. So now that I know x is -3, I have to go back and plug it in somewhere. Maybe I'll plug it into this top one. So a -5 times a -3 added to 7y is 92. So that's 15 plus 7y is 92. Subtract 15 from both sides. And I get 7y equals, what is that, 77? And then divide. And looks like y equals 11 would be the answer to this one. All right, number 15. This actually looks, it's expansion, but it's the difference of squares again. So looks like they're really liking this difference of squares this year. So when you have two binomials, you do b squared times b squared, and you get the b to the fourth. And then since one's a plus and one's a minus, you'd have 3b squared. But then when you do the -3 and distribute, you get -3b squared, which that's why it's a difference of squares. And then -3 times a +3, well, that should be a -9. So they're saying the answer is b squared minus b to the fourth minus a, but it's really b to the fourth minus 9. So it looks like the value of a is just 9. I could see people writing -9, but 9 is actually what would match up there. All right, 16, we finally see a geometry problem, which there's not a lot of them on the SAT, but we have one right here, and goes through a story problem. She leases this triangular area to the farmer, but then they want to know what is the area of the field that she does not lease. So they're actually wanting us to find this white area here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do subtraction. I'm going to do the area of the square, subtract the area of that triangle, and whatever's left over is going to be this white area. So the area of the square is 80 times itself, length times width, or side times side, 80 squared. Take away, be careful here, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So the base would be 50, the height would be 40. And now we just got to crank it out. That's 6,400. Again, this is no calculator, so you kind of have to, most of the numbers are tens and things like that, but you still got to be somewhat good at it. 50 times 40 is 2,000. Half of 2,000 is 1,000. So 6,400 minus 1,000 would be 5,400. There's no commas to enter, so just 5,400. All right, number 17 is a classic mixture type problem. So it says how many liters of a 10% must be added to a 25% to get a 15%. So here's kind of what you're going to do. You're actually going to do the percent times the amount of each piece. So we don't know, so we have 10% times an unknown amount. So there's our 10% solution. And then we have 25% of a 5 liter. So we do know the percent and the amount for that piece. We know the percent, but we don't know the amount for this piece. And then that has to equal out of 15% times, and we actually, we don't know the amount exactly, but we know it's whatever x plus 5 is. So now it just becomes an algebra equation. So I have 0.10x plus a quarter of 5 is 1.25. And then I have 0.15x plus, what's that, 7.75. And now I'm going to get all my x's to one side. So I'm going to minus 10 cents x minus, I always think money here. And so that goes away. So that means I have to subtract the 75. I'm kind of doing two steps here just to save a little space. And $1.25 minus 75 cents is 50 cents. And 15 minus that's a nickel. And then divide. How many nickels go into 50 cents? It looks like X has to be 10. All right, so 10 liters. And then I can plug that back in and just make sure that it makes sense. 0.10 times 10 liters plus 0.25 times 5 liters is that would be 0.15 times 10 plus 5, or 15. And that's 1 plus 125. And 15 times itself is 2.25. So it looks like it checks out. Life is good. All right, hopefully that helps. Now we're going to move on to the calculator. See you.